We're better. Um, Good morning from the Tar Heel State. I'm sorry I cannot be with all of you in person to share the, oh, so it's too early. We'll wait for this. Let's stand. Invocation, please. Okay, we'll take a moment of silence. We want to thank all the staff and the students and teachers for a wonderful year, and we hope that they have a safe and successful summer. And just a moment of silence. And Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call, please.
Anderson. Boyer. Here. Donaldson.
Present. Jackson
is excused. Kiesler. Here. Nesta.
Here.
Keblem. Zivkovic.
Here.
Okay, approval of the minutes, May 12th, 2015.
A motion to approve?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the agenda, regular meeting.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, superintendent's report.
Good morning. I am Nelson Stevenson, Superintendent, City of Cape Coral Charter Schools. I just wanted to start off, first of all, by saying the end-of-year celebrations were absolutely amazing at our schools. Our 8th grade promotion ceremony, our graduation, all the graduations, 5th grade graduations at our schools, all the events were just magnificent. And the report for the graduation video that we did a live streaming, because remember there were some concerns about the size. We had over 1,700 people watch live at the time. It's now up to 2,000 something people have gone back and viewed it. So we're very pleased. That's bought us some time in our own gym, and it worked out really well. So again, a quick, easy solution for a problem, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. So we're looking at that system down the road to be utilized for ceremonies, events, maybe sporting later. Clearly, we don't want to lose revenue or gate. But we could do something like after the event, you could go back on and watch. So there's an exciting future going to happen with using the Cube and that software. So again, from parents and the people out there, I heard absolutely not one complaint after the fact. So it worked really well. So pleased with that. I also would be remiss in not thanking all the administrators, the admin staff, for all the hard work that they've done. You all know they're at these events. They live this job. So I just cannot thank them enough. They know how much I care about them and think that they do a great job, but it's good for them to be recognized, so I wanted to make sure to do that. Now onto business, the accreditation. I wanted to let you know that we've actually got dates established now, May 1st through May 4th, 2016. We have blocked those into our calendar. This is going to require a lot of work on a lot of parts. So what we'll be doing when we come back, we'll be looking at plans for how we can make sure that we will make sure that our accreditation is as good as it can be. We know that we're doing a great job, but we want others to know that. There will be some training for the governing board that we'll be asking you to go through to make sure that you know exactly what needs to happen and the things that you need to know based on that. We've placed just recently the vision and mission up in all of our schools. They're big posters. They're printed. They're very nice, and I'd like to give credit to Amanda Sanford and the high school staff that helped put those together. So it's kind of a nice reminder as you walk in, what is our vision, what's our mission? So that's all part of what we're trying to do. I also commend the staff that went. We've got a couple here that went with us to the accreditation training. So they are committing to do a long process as well. I'll be attending the Charter School National Conference in New Orleans in a week and a half. It'll be a great opportunity to find out best practice. I'm going to be borrowing the best practice from what's happening in other places and probably sharing a little bit of the great things that we do here as well. And I'll have a full report for you all on my activities and what I've gained from that. And finally, I'd just like to thank the governing board members for the variety of work that you do. I don't want to call out any one person, but being that this is a voluntary job, the fact that you've done things like work on our field, working with the city to assure things we need, grant writing, interview committees, just being a cheerleader for our system. Again, as part of not only the superintendent of the schools, but as a member of the city of Cape Coral, we appreciate all that you guys do. And with that, the end of my report is here, except I've got a little video that I'd like to show you. This is, when we first came on board, we thought about how can we tie in all 4 of our schools, make sure that we get that promotional stuff of all the great things we do. So Vivian Terrio is the one that actually put this all together, and it was with work of students. So it's really great to know that our students produced this video. So it's about 4 minutes, so if you'll just stick with me. I know we have a long meeting, but I think this will be well worth the time.
Good luck on your first day of school.
Don't worry, you'll love the City of Cape Coral Charter Authority School.
Soon you too will see why there's no place you'd rather be.
We're 1,000 miles from comfort. We have traveled land and sea. But as long as you are with me, there's no place I'd rather be. I would away forever, exalted in the sea. As long as I am with you, my heart continues to beat. With every step we take, Kyoto to the bay, strolling so casually. We're different and the same, gave you another name, switch up the batteries. If you gave me a chance, I would take it. It's a shot in the dark, but I'll make it. Knowing the little heart, you can't shame me.
When I am with you, there's no place I'd rather be.
No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. We set out on a mission to find our inner peace, make it everlasting, so nothing's incomplete. It's easy being with you, sacred simplicity. As long as we're together, there's no place I'd rather be. With every step we take, Kyoto to the bay, strolling so casually. We're different and the same, gave you another name, switch up the batteries. If you gave me a chance, I would take it. It's a shot in the dark, but I'll make it. Knowing the little heart, you can't shame me. When I am with you, there's no place I'd rather be. 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 When I am with you, there's no place I'd rather be. Yeah.
As we know, video does not substitute for a lot of great things that are happening anyway. It's just a good way to illustrate all the good things that are occurring at our schools on a daily basis. So with that, I'd conclude my superintendent report.
Very good, thank you. You do us proud. Okay, chairman report. I'll read something from Amy. She is evidently in the Tar Heel state today, so we'll come back to that. Foundation report. Anybody here from the foundation? Okay, we'll catch up with that at another time. Public comment. We have public out there. Is there any comment? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Staff and board comments. Business manager.
I'd actually like to be excused until the next section.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Director of Procurement and Food Services.
Good morning, Danielle Jensen, Director of Procurement and Food Service. As a department through April, Food Service had a favorable year-to-date profit margin of $131,000. We do not have final numbers for May, but we did finish the year strong. We had a strong National School Lunch Claim Month of over $52,000 and have to wait for the rest of the numbers to come in, but I know we will surpass the amended budget for revenue. It was a great way for my team to end the year. We were really proud about that. So in addition to finishing all the year-end reporting and filing and stuff like that, I'm starting to work on next year's application, which is due next Monday, June 15th. I'm also going to be working on, there's another equipment grant that went out there, and it's due July 8th. We don't meet the first requirement, which is 50% participation in the program, so we don't get the points for that, but I can still apply. With everything else, the most points we can get is 50 out of 100, so I still think it's worth pursuing. I'm just not as promising as I would like, but I'm still going to continue to try and get that. As far as procurement, just very busy with year-end, closing out POs, making sure, getting quotes for some year-end projects that we want to get done this month. Working on quotes for the summer and also working on quotes for next year's budget as well. Any questions?
Questions? Okay, thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Short and easy. Okay, Kristen McCullough.
Good morning, Jackie Collins, Krista McCullough. We had a very busy end of the year. We had our kindergarten promotion ceremony, our 5th grade moving up ceremony. We had Water Day, 2 days, which is our field day, and we wrapped up our Wounded Warriors event that we had. We had boot camp for kids, and actually it was boot camp for everybody. It was a great time, and we wound up raising $4,800 in just that short amount of time for the Wounded Warriors. I also know that Krista Zivkovic organized a 5K, I think, and also donated to the local Wounded Warriors. So they had a great couple of months there, and we're hoping that we can get together with Oasis Elementary next year and do something on a larger scale. So we're very fond of them. They had a great time too. We were doing the the marching song, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it was great. We just had a wonderful time, and so did some of the veterans that were there. It was just I can't tell you what a wonderful event it was. We have a busy summer too. We have a drama camp, sports camp, epic adventure camp, news media camp. We also have kindergarten readiness camp. And let's see, what did I write there? Let's see. And we're going to get our garden started. We won or awarded the grant for our hydroponic garden system, our STEM grant, thanks to Mr. Teblum. So that will break ground this summer. And I think that pretty much wraps up events. I also wanted to let you know, I wasn't sure if anybody had mentioned the FSA. We took the FSA test this year. Those scores aren't going to be back until, we're thinking sometime in December. That was something that we had on our summer message over the phone. And Sabrina, my secretary, was assuming they'd be in at the end of the summer like they usually are, but that's not true. So if anybody asks, you can let them know that because they have to be norm referenced and we have to develop baseline scores, those test scores will not be in the near future. Okay. Any questions?
Hey, Daryl.
I just had one question, since you mentioned the FSA. How will that affect schools' performance? Like, we're an A school system, each of our schools are A's. I'm assuming we're still going to remain A's, but do you have any idea how that's going to affect us?
We're still going to be graded. Am I right? According to those. it's held harmless, but we will still receive grades.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Odette?
I just, don't leave, Jackie. I just wanted to say, I was able to go to that art experience that you guys had last month with Ms. Bauman that put on that Saturday event. It was incredible. Really a nice way to include the whole school on being able to exhibit their artwork. I know it was a phenomenal amount of work to put it all together. Those living art posters at with the faces cut out that the students could take their pictures with and be part of the artwork as you first came in. So I think Miss Dahl was part of.
Sherry Dahl, yep.
Sherry, and
she contributed some of her
and Ms.
artwork.
Bauman, of course, the excellent work she did. But it was really, you could tell it was an
beautiful
entire
event.
school effort. So I just wanted to commend you guys. You did an excellent job on that.
Thank you. I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Okay, one more, Rob?
Just a comment on the Wounded Warrior Project. It's not a question. Just thank you for, that's not good. I'm drawing a blank. The gym teacher that found.
Oh, Wendy Harriman?
Yes, thank you, Miss Harriman. Goodness, for finding the Wounded Warrior Project and you guys donating. And Krista did, or Doctors of Kovic, I guess, did piggyback on that, and because they're a local charity and there's local benefit to local members, it doesn't go someplace out in the country and then gets spent on admin work. It actually goes to where it's supposed to, and they also donated over $4,000. So I attribute that
that's
to
wonderful.
Mrs. Harriman as well. So thank you.
We had a neighbor that walked up. We had a helicopter that landed in, I guess, an old Army helicopter. We had the tanks there, so it was quite a big event. We had a local neighbor that kind of walked into the campus, and of course I walked over to him because he didn't have his badge on. But he said he was a veteran, and he just wanted to come over and see what was going on. He wanted to touch the helicopter because it brought back a lot of memories for him because he was jumping out of the helicopter. And then I mentioned it was for the Wounded Warriors, the local chapter, and he just got very choked up, and he said they do a lot for us. They take us fishing, they really take good care of us. And I was very moved by that, very touched. So I'm glad I'm glad I went over to talk to him and find out who he was. It was just a fabulous event. I'm so glad we did that.
Great job.
Excellent, great, thank you, Jackie. Okay, Oasis Elementary.
Good morning, Steve Hook, Oasis Elementary. We too finished the year on a very high note with fifth grade promotion ceremony. We sent 140 of them off to the middle school, and it was a very touching event because a lot of them had been with us all from kindergarten. We had our kindergarten camp and welcomed 140 of them, so they've all been replaced already. It doesn't take long in the education world. We currently have 70 on the waiting list for kindergarten, so that's a good thing. Enrollment for 16-17 school year, which is even out another year, is open, and so enrollment has started. Open house is August 22nd, Saturday, so we're planning and working on those kind of things already. We've got readiness camps and drama camps and lots of stuff going on this summer too. So never a dull moment, but just lots of good things going on at school.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Steve. All right, Oasis Middle.
Keith is elected to have dental surgery today instead of being here. No, he did actually have a dentist appointment that he could not get out of, so he's not going to be able to speak. But he did just want me to reiterate that they've been working really hard with their schedule and getting everything set and planned for next year. So, okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the high school.
Good morning, Amanda Sanford, Oasis High School. Graduation, like you said, was a success. We had a great turnout, and the live stream was an amazing thing for us to do, and I hope we do it in the years to come. I was asked to give you an update on our graduates and where they were headed. Right now, we had 57% who were accepted into a 4-year university. 34% were going to a 2-year college. 4% are joining the military. 2% plan to travel for a year, and 3% are attending a technical school. So those were the 100% of our graduates did meet the graduation requirements, and we did really well. So that was definitely a positive to the end of the year. Testing is not over for us. We actually conclude tomorrow. We have 2 more ACE exams today, and then 2 more tomorrow, and then we'll wrap up our year with ACE testing. Scores come back in August, so we'll hopefully know how our students did. FSA is on a delay, as Jackie mentioned. We hope to get the EOCs for biology and history this month, though, so hopefully we'll have some of those scores back and know how we're doing. JROTC is traveling this summer. I think they're going on 4 different trips. 3 boys are attending Boys State, so that is definitely an honor. We're also doing some sports camps at the gym, so we'll have volleyball and basketball and some other events going on at the school all summer long, as well as summer school for the next 3 weeks. Miss Teresa and I have been talking a lot lately. She'll be here later this month. She's very excited. They're getting ready to close on a home, so everything is falling into place. So that is a great thing for Oasis, and we're already planning for next year, so it's going to be wonderful.
Very good. Odette?
I just wanted to say thank you, Amanda, for really stepping into this role that was kind of, so it's really brought out your greatness for sure. So
thank you.
Just thank you again. I mean, the graduation just went flawlessly. It was just such a beautiful event and everything you guys have done, so.
I appreciate that.
Very good. And Rob?
Thank you for having us to the graduation. Last year was the first time I've been to a high school graduation in a long time, and it was so refreshing to see. There's always this doom and gloom about, oh my goodness, look at these kids. But last year and again this year, I mean, it's inspiring, the speeches they gave. We've got great kids. You guys are doing great things with them, and I look forward to their futures and following them through their successes. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
I also wanted to thank you for stepping into this role. You did a really great job.
Thank you.
I also wanted to give a shout out to the band teacher. This was his first year. He started out the year with nothing. I saw the band concert at the end of the year. It was really impressive considering, again, he started out the year with nothing. It was really well done. So I'm glad we have that program, and definitely kudos.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'd like to add my comments, both for the middle and the high school. The graduations were phenomenal. The kids were phenomenal, and just a lot of tears all the way around. So hats off to everybody who partook in that, and especially to our kids who do us proud. Thank you, both middle and high schools.
Thank you.
Elementaries we missed, I'm sorry. But I'm sure it was phenomenal. Okay, question? Anybody else?
I just wanted to echo those sentiments. Mr. Graham did a great job of stepping up, and Amanda, amazing. Especially considering you had to throw together a graduation and everything else. And I know you had a interesting couple weeks leading up to that, being busy and all. I was very impressed with how it went for both graduations, and just shows how excellent our staff is. Thanks for a great job.
Okay, Rob, another comment, or you're good?
No, I think
okay.
Turned off last night.
Very good. Okay. Moving on, where do we leave? Unfinished business, there is none. New business, okay, brings us to the crux of the meeting, which is the approval fiscal year 2015-16 tentative budget. Mary Ann, you're the star of the show.
Good morning, Mary Ann Monas, Business Manager. Oh, it's up there already. Okay. First, the fiscal year 2015-16 proposed operating budget was designed at the, or should I say, was developed under the direction of Mr. Stevenson. In addition, the principals assisted in building the budget, as well as various departments such as food services, custodial, maintenance, transportation. I tried to get the departments involved who actually played a key role in the budgets and get them more involved and more accountable for their budgets. So that's how the budget began to be developed. In addition, we kept in mind that we wanted to have revenues exceed expenditures as always. That's our primary goal. With that said, the total proposed budget is $27.2 million, and that supports all 4 schools, the 2 VPK programs, as well as the administration function. It represents an increase of $1.1 million over previous year, or 4.27% of our amended fiscal year amended budget, fiscal year 15 amended budget. The operating revenue is estimated at $24.2 million and cash balance at $3 million, which reflects an increase of $194,000. And what we'll do is we'll go through each of these line items through the upcoming slides, so that way it'll give you a better understanding of what exactly makes up each individual line. The expenses were built using a zero-based budget approach, in addition to looking at history from previous year. They total $24.1 million, and that's excluding $3.1 million in reserves. The capital outlay funding is approximately $49,000, and that was requested primarily to replace some aging equipment. And again, revenues will exceed expenditures by approximately $127,000, which is our goal. Where does our money come from? Well, typically, it comes from the legislative sessions. They decide how much money is going to be given to the educational budgets. Unfortunately, they haven't come into an agreement. They are still in special session. As of last evening, they did anticipate on the FEFP side that there would be a potential 3% increase to FEFP funding, but they have not discussed PICO at this time. And I need to say that because the majority of our revenue sources come from those two areas. Those are our largest funding sources for the schools. So to date, the legislature has not released a budget. And again, those two areas, the FEFP and PICO funding, is our largest revenue sources. Under intergovernmental funding, it includes FEFP funding, and what we did in this year's budget, or the upcoming proposed budget, is we accounted for 3% increase. So even though it was released last night at 3%, that's where we budgeted, was 3%. So we're right on target. We'll probably make a small adjustment to that when the adopted budget is proposed, only because we typically budget at 97% on our revenue side to account for any changes in enrollment during the course of the year. The National School Lunch Program, that's holding steady with 36% of our student population. We did have just a slight increase in revenue, about $10,000, and we do anticipate 28 new students. The National School Lunch Program, it's difficult to tell right now until the applications go out as to how many students that program will serve. A money, since we don't know what the A money is at this time, that is not accounted for in the proposed budget, and it would be added through the amendment process. VPK, they say that the VPK, again, is going to be level funded. They did anticipate approximately a 1% increase to that program, which would only account for $1,900 in our budgets. So I just left it level funded until we hear for certain. The teacher lead money, that's under intergovernmental revenues as well. The teacher lead money, that's where the teachers receive $259 each to purchase office supplies. That's been level funded for the last couple of years. So again, we've left that at the same amount. The Title II funding, again, that's been pretty level over the last couple of years. It's had a slight decrease, but nothing major. So those revenues were budgeted at the same level. And then ACE, we do anticipate an increase to our ACE program this year. But we did, because we're not certain yet. I had worked with Amanda, who's been very, very helpful this year in the high school budget process, and we've agreed that we will leave that at level funded as well on the revenue side. The capital outlay, the PICO funds, we have not received any word whatsoever on the PICO funds. According to the legislative report I received last evening or Sunday evening, the FEFP was discussed, but there hasn't been any discussion whatsoever on the PICO side, so we're still waiting on that. The last I did hear through the Department of Education is that there was to be a slight increase to 80 million. It's at 74 right now, but what we've done just to be conservative is we've left it level funded. Charges for services, that includes student lunches, the a la carte funds, the bus rentals by Park and Recs, and any other miscellaneous, items that we charge for services. And that remained pretty level for the year, for the proposed budget. And then miscellaneous revenue is the contributions, donations, other miscellaneous revenue, reimbursable revenue, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield rebate that we received last year. You'll see a decline in that funding. It goes from 397 to 214 or 215, and that is primarily associated with the, I backed out the Blue Cross Blue Shield rebate because we don't know if we'll be receiving that funding this year. Where does our money go? Well, 16.3 million of the funds that we're asking for will cover personnel costs. 2% will cover operating costs. 80% will cover, or the increase of 80% in capital outlay, again, is for aging equipment. And our reserves are 3.1 million, for a total of 27.2 million again. We will discuss each of these categories actually in greater detail in the upcoming slides. Our enrollment history, again, we continue to increase in our enrollment, but we are beginning to level off, as we've noticed the last couple of years. We anticipated originally an increase of 28 new FTEs. Krista McAuliffe has actually had additional enrollment since these charts were created. She anticipates an additional 21 FTEs, bringing her total enrollment to 744. So that's actually good news because that will impact our revenues. And VPK programs are fully filled once again. Staffing changes for the proposed upcoming year. What we are proposing is to add a full-time principal. As you know, we currently share an assistant principal between Krista McAuliffe and Oasis Elementary. The thought process was to have their own individual assistant principal at each of the schools. This would not only have someone there as a backup, but also I guess make a better environment for the students, the teachers, the parents, just knowing that someone would be there all the time rather than half at one school, half at the other. A bus driver's proposed. We currently have 15 routes, but we only have 14 bus drivers. So we would have a bus driver for each of our routes. We will be eliminating an office assistant position. There is an operation manager proposed, and the description for that was included in the budget book that you received. The security guard position at the high school has been eliminated, and we are also requesting a total of 3 teachers, and 2 of those would be located at Oasis High School. One would be a math teacher, and the other one would be a French teacher. And then the last teacher would be located at Krista McAuliffe, and that would be for a math interventionist teacher. So we would have 311 full-time or regular employees, and then we would have 84 substitutes. That includes our sub-custodians, our sub-paras, our sub-teachers, and our sub-bus drivers. The other 2 items I'd like to make note on staffing changes is that we did seek approval in regards to the speech therapist position, a speech language pathologist position, and we did ask that the salary be changed on that job description to bring it more in line with the national standard. And those rates were in the book. And the second change on job descriptions would be the separation of the sub-custodian position and sub-food service worker. At current, those positions are one, and that was when the economy was very bad. They would have folks that would like to work in both of those areas, so they just combine those positions. But now we find that the folks would only like to work one area, so we'd like to separate those positions out. Nothing else is affected, it's just separating a sub-food service worker and a sub-custodian. So overall, there would be 3 additional positions proposed in the budget. Personnel. Personnel costs account for 60% of the proposed budget, or $16.3 million. The personnel costs include base pay, ad pays, the sub-pay, your insurances, FICA, Medicare, workers' comp, our benefits, and FRS. The base payroll has increased, and that increase is due to, we've put in a 1.5% salary increase across all staff members. The ad pays totaled $416,000. Healthcare in general had a 2.5% increase over the course of the year. In addition, with the new healthcare reform, we have approximately 60 employees who would be eligible for healthcare, and that takes effect January 2016. So those areas that would be affected are food service, custodial, paraprofessionals, clinic assistants, and office assistants. And then lastly, the Florida Retirement System, FRS, had an increase of 1.5% over previous year. So those are the contributing factors to our personnel costs for that increase. On the operating side consists of $7.7 million, or 28.3% of the proposed budget. Out of that $7.7 million, it should be noted that 3.5 of that is associated with the debt service on our buildings. So I don't want to say our true operating expenses, but our overall operating expenses are really $4.2 million. And those are the day-to-day costs of running the schools. It includes fixed costs such as rent, electric, building insurance. This year in the operating budget, we do have some one-time items where we've included the replacement of the condenser unit over at Krista McAuliffe. That was estimated to be approximately $40,000. We have the new bus costs associated with the 4 new buses that we purchased in the current year. We're also proposing that we lease a school vehicle and find that we're paying out quite a substantial amount in mileage to our employees, and it would be nice to have a vehicle where the employees or staff members could use in the event they had to travel, and that would offset the cost of the mileage that we currently pay by far. And then we have some funding in there to replace student chairs as we continue to grow and enrollment continues to increase, especially in the elementary areas. We need to replace those chairs and add additional chairs in some of the other areas. We looked at replacing food service equipment. They requested a milk cooler, an ice cream cooler, and a new sink to get their kitchens up to standard for the new year. The culinary arts area requested, they're not sure yet if they need a washing machine or an ice machine. They requested both, but weren't sure when they needed it. So I've placed the funding in there, and it would be for either or, one of those items, depending on how far they can continue using what they currently have. Custodial equipment requested was a floor scrubber and a carpet extractor. We've also had increased costs for the ACE program and other specialty programs such as advanced placement. And then finally, on the operating side, we currently budget for our bookkeeper, John Lawrence, who will be leaving. He has agreed to stay on board until the end of September. The city is in the process of replacing him, and they have suggested that they replace him with an accountant 3 position versus a bookkeeper position, which does hold a higher salary. So there's an increase associated with that. So when you look at the accounting and auditing line, that's what's causing that increase.
How do you feel about that?
My personal opinion is I find that John is extremely valuable to the schools. And being both a city employee and having to work at the schools, I can see how valuable an accountant is on both sides. John currently does a lot of I guess how I look at it is when the schools were built originally, a bookkeeper would have sufficed for the schools. But as the schools have grown, it's always been my understanding that the intention was either to have 2 bookkeepers at the school or an accountant. So as the schools have grown over the years, I agree that we do need an accountant, but John does a lot of bookkeeping work as well, so there's also that need for those other functions. We're trying to kind of not scatter, but assign those lesser responsibilities to folks within our school. And then Vicki Bateman has suggested that she would like the accounting position here at the city. So it would be, accountant position here at the city, physically located here at the city. And that person would be like one of their accountants and do our books. And it's really more so, I agree to answer your question, I agree that accountant is needed because of the financial statements and the year-end reporting. But I also feel a bookkeeper is needed at the school, or someone who does those functions at the school to run the day-to-day accounts payable type things that John currently does.
Okay.
Do we need a full-time accountant? Maybe not.
That's what we're paying for.
I was going to say,
Correct. That's their proposal. And the initial proposal when the budget was built was that we would have one accountant. The accountant would work for the city half-time and work for the schools half-time. But that was prior to John leaving, because it was going to be a transition period. But now that John has given his notice that he will be leaving, they are recommending a full-time accountant for the schools.
but the full-time accountant is going to be here
Is going
at the
to be
city.
here at the city.
But we're paying for the account.
We pay for their services. They report directly to the accounting supervisor here at the city. Correct, and benefits.
So,
No.
So.
Doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
you
That is
mentioned
the
this was a.
proposal.
I'm
that-
sorry.
no,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
that's
You mentioned
fine.
this was a recommendation to the city,
Yep,
so we could say
yep.
thank
It
you,
is
but no thank you.
posted. It is posted out there. If it needs to be reevaluated, I don't have a problem going back to Vicki, and Vicki Bateman and speaking with her in regards to it. But that's what they are proposing.
If I remember, that's a 78 to 93,000 or something like that.
I believe the high end was 70. It might be like 50,
I think it was 65,
say 55 to 70, somewhere around there.
And essentially, like you said, what they're going to be doing is the year-end bookkeeping. So if we sub that out to a CPA firm for a couple, we'd pay a lot less than 70,000.
The problem I foresee, from my view, is that we're linked to the city IT systems, the GL system. So what happens is a lot of times John takes our stuff, he brings it to the city, and the city enters it into their GL system, their general ledger system. So when we look at where we are, when I look where we are, for budgeting purposes to actual, I rely very heavily on those duties that the city does to see, to make sure that I know where the schools are financially. So to just say we could just give it to an accounting firm is a little difficult, because then we lose our GL systems.
And we obviously can't go without John's position, as you mentioned, just for the bookkeeping duties. But those are bookkeeping duties. It's data entry. When John goes over there, he's entering data. He's not using tax skills or accounting skills to enter debt.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. The
34
the
to
pay is
68.
34 to 68.
And they
I was
typically
thinking
hire at the
70.
lower end of
Yep.
that, so.
Okay.
It's not a,
You applied for that job?
Well, right now, John does. John does, but they felt that they would like this person to be physically located at the city.
Well, I would like an extra employee in for you to pay for it as well.
Yeah,
And they'll just work out of my office, but they'll do your stuff, don't worry.
okay. And what was the objection to have just hiring another bookkeeper? I mean,
The workload has become more than a bookkeeping position.
okay.
Which I agree, that is 100% true. And the history has always been that there would always be two bookkeepers. So John started out, when the schools were, originated, but the schools have expanded, but a second bookkeeper was never added. John just, took on those additional responsibilities. So now that he's ready to, to depart, he does, again, those the biggest thing is, for the city, the financial statements and and year-end auditing purposes, to have an accountant there, or an accountant to do that for the schools.
Lenny, can we go through the chair, please, when we just put your light on?
I just have some concern that the city is trying to tell us what we need to do, and this board is the direction to the school system. It seems like they're going over our heads, and the decision ultimately has to come from this board and direct the city what we want to do and what we don't want to do. I haven't seen the posting. You said it was posted?
I believe it was posted, yes.
So somebody had to initiate direction to Vicky, Ms. Bateman, to say yay or nay?
The initial conversation that both Mr. Stevenson and myself had with Vicki was that she wanted to hire an accountant, and the purpose of the accountant was to have that accountant work half-time to work on fleet, because she needed someone to catch up on her fleet backlog, and then also have that person come to the schools and work a couple days at the schools to begin training for John's position. And then ultimately, because John initially wasn't anticipating on retiring for 2 years. So it was going to be more like a succession plan for John, that, the bookkeeper would spend a couple days, not the bookkeeper, the accountant would spend a couple days at the schools, and, John would transition his duties over to that person. And I had gone back to Ms. Bateman, and I said that I felt that 2 years was too soon, and that even speaking with John, we felt maybe a year would be more suitable to have that transition begin. And then what ultimately ended up happening was John has given his resignation, and which has kind of put us in a bind where we need to have someone, replace John, especially for his financial reporting pieces. It's year end, the audit, the audit is coming in to start beginning to work on our CAFR, and so we do need to get through year end with John,
So, why can't we ask for another bookkeeper and send our auditing stuff year end and CAFR over to our auditing department for the city, and let them spend that time that's necessary for that audit to be handled, whatever dollars that would be, and then we would still have a second full-time bookkeeper. We have it in the budget for a full-time bookkeeper, correct?
Yes. In this particular budget, what I did was I had gone with the initial plan. I left John in there because I did not realize he was leaving at that point. But then I also budgeted for a half of an accountant. So in the event that John did leave, we had the funding for the full accountant.
So we have, do we have funding for 2 bookkeepers? Or is it a bookkeeper and half?
A bookkeeper and half,
And then half of an accountant?
a half of an accountant. But combined, it would be one accountant.
Have we inquired what accountant services would cost us from Margaret's department, from the auditing department for our year end? And bring on the bookkeeper full-time?
We have not, but my only concern in regards to that would be who's gonna be doing our monthly financial statements. John does all of the reporting to the Lee County School District. So we need, I think that's above a bookkeeper's position. It's more of what an accountant would do. No.
I'm speaking specifically for myself. My concern is, I have an issue, and I don't know why, because I'm sitting on the other side too. I have an issue that our split person, number one, is working here in the city, doing city stuff, but also doing our stuff. We're paying for it. We're paying for half of it. I guess that's kind of my issue. Why can't you determine what we need? And in your determination, if this board agrees to it, make direction to the city of this is what we want. Instead of the city telling us what we want. We're the board. We should be telling the city, unless you're in favor of that, and then I'll shut up. I mean, just.
My personal opinion is, I strongly believe that we need some type of an accountant position. Does it need to be an accountant 3, which is a higher level accountant? Probably not. But in order to find talented, employees, it's been a proven factor that by paying somebody at the low end, that's what you're gonna get. The city has experienced tremendous turnaround, especially in their finance department with their accountants over the last several years. And I would hate for us to spend all that time training and getting somebody up to par for them to leave, 6 months into it or even a year into it. So my thought process is, yes, we need an accountant. Do we need to hire him at the high end? No, we could probably bring him in at the low end of an accountant 3. I don't understand personally why they have to be a city employee. Why can't they be a charter school employee? I don't know.
They don't have to be a city employee.
It's always been that way, so I'm not really sure why. I could discuss that with Ms. Bateman and see if we can come to some conclusion with that.
Mr. Nelson, correct me, if we hire from the outside, do they have to go through HR and become a city employee?
HR provides services to the charter schools as well. We could use HR and they can become a charter school employee. The HR would just be involved in the recruitment and background checks and things like that, but they could be a charter school employee. And if I may continue, I see no reason why the charter schools could not hire their own accountant, and have that accountant, of course, liaison with the city and provide the city everything all the information it needs and access to their general ledger system under the control of Ms. Moniz, and the charter school that employee would be a charter school employee and under the control of Ms. Moniz, and then we know that employee would be doing charter school business and charter school work entirely, and it could be if she feels comfortable with and she could secure somebody and establish a reasonable salary, a part-time accountant rather than a full-time accountant, and maybe use the rest of the funds for a bookkeeper or something like that. Now the city code does provide that the city can require us to use their accounting services, but we do when we pay them for us. But I mean, I think as long as we're providing the funds for that employee. Now, my understanding, Mr. Lawrence was a city employee. Is that correct? I mean, it may be better because of this, again, when the charter schools, and I was here from the beginning, started, they were much smaller in operation. It was not practical or feasible for the charter school to have its own employee doing that because there just wasn't enough. But however, with the $20-some million budget for charter schools, situation has changed. Now may be the time to bring some of that in-house. So the board, I think, could consider that. Allow maybe Ms. Moniz to negotiate with the city to let her hire a part-time accountant with the qualifications she deems appropriate, and use the funds to maybe disperse for a bookkeeper or whatever else she thinks would be and Mr. Stevenson thinks appropriate.
My catch to that too would be, as I'm working the process, to what availability would they have to come back into the city and plug the numbers into the city side?
Right, and to me, this whole, because I get the questions that you've got. For me, that was the very first thing that I talked about is why and why do we have to have, and it had just been what we had always done. And so I would say that we need an accountant. If you're asking me directly, and I'm telling you, I think we need an accountant. Now, whether it's a 3 or a 1, and whether it's a matter of $10,000 difference in salary between one or the other, we have enough things ongoing throughout the year that I do see the need. And there are times where it hems and haws. There are times when they would be busier, but it's no different than all of us where, graduation time we're busier and other times there's not, but we can certainly have other things if we get the right person. And so my concern, to be honest with you, is not whether or not we need the accountant. My concern is whether or not we have control over the accountant. And so if you're asking for direction from me, I would say I'd like the accountant, but I would love to have a lot more control, because then we can direct what happens on those down periods. And right now, the way it is, I don't have that kind of ability because they don't report. The systems are the issue, though, and the key part is, are they going to have access? Would the city allow them to have access? And is there any accounting issues with our employee having access to their systems? Because that does become a little bit problematic, but I'm sure that could probably be hammered out. So my recommendation is an accountant, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, but I would love to see them be part ours, no matter what, and at least the HR side, that they're our employee. So that would be my recommendation.
I mean, I'd certainly be more than happy to go back with Vicki Bateman and discuss our concerns.
Right, and I will
that we
talk to
can
Ms.
come up
Bateman
with a
also,
mutual
but,
agreement.
for the board, it's ultimately our decision.
Yeah.
I have a level of discomfort, speaking on this board side, with that partnership that is currently going on, or potentially could go on with them working here in the city, doing half of our stuff. Unless this board is fine with that, then once again, I'll shut up. But
And I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know if the purpose of it is because the charter schools' financial being is part of the city overall when they do their reporting. And I don't know if that's what's causing that, the employee has to be a city employee. I don't know the history behind, why it is a city employee.
And I'm assuming there would be some reasoning behind that, that you're getting into our system, into our servers. Our servers are connected to the police department. There's a lot more to that. You'd want them to be a city employee. But like Mr. Lawrence, he was a city employee, but he worked in the school system. So I will be quiet now, but my 2 cents would be to tell the city what exactly we want instead of the city telling us what they want. And that would be my 2 cents. Thank you.
There's a lot of lights on, so I don't know if you've all spoken. If not,
no,
you can turn your lights off.
We're waiting to speak. We're waiting for the
Okay.
chairperson to recognize us.
Let's start.
We've
let's
been
start at
impatiently
that.
waiting.
Rob, Rob, we'll start with you.
I just want to echo many of Mr. Nessa's comments. If we're paying for, well, one, I guess, I don't think the question was answered, and who authorized the position? It sounds like Mrs. Bateman is telling us what we need, and she's made the decision and sort of bypassed everybody in here. Is that safe to say? And with all due respect, Ms. Bateman, I think she's good at what she does, but I don't think she has any role in our system here. So.
I think it was more of, we went kind of, I don't want to say that, I think it was more that we went with the conversation, knowing that we needed to replace John. And it was supposedly supposed to be a transition type thing, because that's what was agreed to. It was never a full-time accountant 3. That was never what the agreement was.
But that's what's been posted.
Yes. The agreement was more so that she was in need of an accountant 2 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever it was, to have her be able to let her catch up on her fleet area. And then that person would come and sit with John for 2 days, and then 2 or 3 days, whatever it was, and become, familiar with the charter school. Eventually, in the end, that employee was to be a charter school person, still an accountant under the city, but work for be a charter school person. But then and that's how the half of accountant position became budgeted in this. But then what ultimately ended up happening is they asked John for a list of his job duties. He gave them the list of the job duties. They've looked at that and decided what could kind of go to what could stay at the school, or what is really a bookkeeper function, and what is John doing that's currently an accountant function. And they kind of looked at those two positions. Vicki came back to us and said it would be her recommendation that we would hire 1 or 2 bookkeepers at the charter school level, plus have the accountant at the city, which was just too much financially, for us to consider at the school, for the schools. So that's how the accountant position came about. And we decided that we weren't going to hire a bookkeeper based on that at the school level, but more look at those bookkeeping responsibilities and kind of share them out and see if we could have our current employees take over some of those responsibilities.
Okay, so it seems, I don't see this as a good solution to what we have. I know you guys know better than I do, obviously, but we obviously needed John. John was in-house, and he was pretty busy while he was here, correct?
Correct.
And now we're going to replace him with somebody out of house that I would imagine whenever the city gets in a bind and needs extra help, and they've got somebody sitting in their department, he's probably going to be doing something else other than our work. Okay, that's just natural. I mean, so we need, I think, I agree with Mr. Nestor, we need somebody, and Mr. Nelson, that we need somebody in-house so to do it. We have, our bookkeeper now is full-time. Our staff is already helping. If we're going to rely on staff to fill in because now we've got this person we're paying for over here, it's just silly all around. Go ahead, you want to say something?
And I just wanted to add that at one point there was 4 bookkeepers mentioned, 1 for each school, and then we said there's no way we put our heels down on that one. So that was the original concept. Now, what we've also looked at is a way to maximize what we do. So we've parceled out some of those things on that list because, quite frankly, when I saw John's list too, I knew what John did, but he's just so good. And when you have somebody that's that good, you don't realize the enormity of what he's taken on that's not anywhere close to his job description. So in part, I believe in the accountant position and part of it, but also we've got folks that have taken those things that are more, if you will, school functions, things that John has said, I'll do. And we've been able to do that with minimal input to the budget. So we have people doing additional duties that have taken a lot. So again, my recommendation is for an accountant, but if we would negotiate with the city about maybe halftime, I think that would be fine. And whether they actually, quite frankly, are here in this building at halftime would be fine with me in the context of we know what they need to be doing if we're only paying half the salary.
Yeah, I would think that we ask John, how much time is actually included in the data entry here that he has to be here, and that would be the time that we would reimburse the city for their expenses here. The rest of the time, we should have our employee doing what they need to do. Bookkeeping, the other thing that I'm wondering if John didn't take on himself. If we parse it out to the staff and then that gets into the front desk secretary who's trying to do this, trying to uncover something in bookkeeping, and you guys again know this better, at the end of the day and then going back through 7 different people who have input into the books is a mess. And I wouldn't want to be dealing with that. I think we need that in-house person. Otherwise, we're going to be paying more, getting less, and having a worse system in place.
And I agree. The thing that we've done though is I'm just exactly what you said is we didn't ask the schools to give us 4 bookkeepers. We've divided it amongst mostly in our office, so there's only a couple. Certainly are not doing it at the school sites. We know the school secretaries do too much already, so we didn't parcel it out to the schools per se. It's within our office, so we have access and hands-on. I get exactly what you're saying, and that actually saved us probably we're paying about a third of a position versus a full position, so.
All right. Well, I think you've heard my concerns. I think, I would imagine, as Mr. Nessa said, we as the board have the final say on adding employees and not the city. And I would be against this position
This and.
as it currently is
Okay.
proposed.
Okay, there's a lot more lights.
No, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Odette?
I just want to echo what the rest of the board members have said. I don't feel that we should have someone housed in the city that is going to be part-time for us. I think they should continue to be housed with us. And whatever needs to be worked out in terms of the logistics for access to their accounting system, I think that can be worked out. But if we're paying for that employee, they should be housed with us.
Okay, Tammy?
I agree also with other sentiments. I think, like Mr. Nesta, my initial concern was the independence of it. I think that does need to remain with the board in that vein. When you start talking about dollars with the accountant position, I think it'd be better suited to have it in-house. I'd be comfortable knowing with Mr. Lawrence still in place and maybe directly reporting to you or Mr. Stevenson, they could grow with the school and become more familiar with our day-to-day operations. Then leave that up to, a shared position, and you'd have access to them in real time to when that need was needed to be met. Instead of coming in an accountant 3, possibly if we've currently used a bookkeeper, although at a high level, maybe an accountant 1. There's also internship programs. We've got local universities that possibly we could bring in if we needed extra help to bring something in at that level for those part-time, maybe kind of a position. But I agree, I think the independence needs to stay with the board, and I'd like to see more direction from you and Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, is there anybody else?
All that was said.
Okay, Daryl?
The accountant 3 positions advertised, starting salary $35,000 or $36,000 a year, which is less than we're paying most of the school teachers. I don't think.
I need to clarify too. It's
Yeah.
at 43. The 43 starting at the
entry.
top it said 35, but when you go down into the depth of it, it's actually 43 to 68 is the range.
Okay, so we would be getting a full-time professional for approximately $43,000 for an accountant full-time. I think that we should amend on the budget, before approval, that we should have control of them and have them in-house too. And I think we should make sure that that's part of an amendment to whatever's approved on the budget. But for only $43,000, it sort of doesn't pay for us to share them when we do need the services full-time. Every time I've been up to administrative, John's face down working. Whenever I've tried to get a hold of him, he's there, 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier, till late afternoon. He puts some hours in. I definitely think that we need to make sure that that's amended at whatever's approved in the budget, and we have control inside of our facilities. Thank you.
Marianne, you want to say anything else?
The only thing I would recommend is, let me go back to Mrs. Bateman. We can speak about our concerns, your concerns, and see if we can come up with a mutual agreement. And that would be for the accountant to be physically located at the charter schools. And we would hire at the low end of the job description, maybe to mid. That would be my recommendation, just kind of, so you have, a selection there. And that we would sit, of course, I would sit in on the interview process and be part of that final decision. But before we did that, find out what is what's the history of why the bookkeeper did not belong to the charter schools.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Do we need a motion? Tammy, you have something?
Mhm.
Go ahead, Tammy.
This is more from the, I heard you mention a couple of times possibly having access to the city systems.
Mhm.
I don't know about but if they have the city HR department does the background and the vetting of the candidates, I would imagine once that hire is done, they've gone through the same process that's in place for a city employee.
Mhm.
So if they had proper internal controls, protocols, and credentials in place, they would know who had access to that system, and it could be isolated to just that individual.
I don't know
imagine from an IT.
Yeah, I don't foresee a problem there. The problem I foresee is that I don't know if it needs to be a city employee that does the actual, reporting, anything to do with the financial reporting, and I don't know if that was the reason why John's position was a city position. I don't know. I really don't know. Because it was probably part of, I'm thinking, the finance group, they're the finance group, and it was, part of that. So I don't know the reason why, and I think that's what, I need to find out. Again, I'll be more than happy to go back to, before there's any commitment in this. My recommendation is we'll leave the funds right now in the proposed budget. We know that it's gonna cover that position, whether it needs, if that person becomes a charter school employee, we can always move those funds up to the personnel, line. Right now, they're sitting in the operating line, and if we need to reduce it, that would then become, once we find out, then that would become part of the proposed, the next budget that would be presented in August. But before then, I would give you an update to make sure that, you're okay with the recommendation or direction.
And I think I heard too a little bit that they could be internal to the schools, but then the piece that was part of the city for the year, and like you mentioned, the CAFR reports and the balance statements, financial statements.
Yeah, that's where my
Possibly
concern
something like Rob
is.
mentioned versus an external hire, external to that, maybe we could just, how do you put that? You pay them for their services, where we have that type of built into our budget at those year-end moments where we pay the city to do that for us.
I know John had, he has access to the, not directly to the funds in there, but he's able to visually see our bank accounts. So he has some pretty high authority, not be able to touch the money, but he does have
Oh, you need
some
strong
pretty high
protocols.
authority. And I don't know, maybe that's the reason, maybe that has something to do with it. I'm really not sure. So I would really like to speak with Vicki Bateman, address our concerns, and bring it back to the board.
Okay, Daryl, did you have anything else?
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right, so does
We
this,
pretty much beat that horse,
Sorry.
are we all agreeing with Mary Ann to go ahead and research it and leave it, the budget as it is? And she'll report back to us if there's any changes or amendments or anything else? We're all good with that? Okay, continue.
Thank you. Where did I leave off? Okay, that was the last item on the operating piece. The capital piece, there's currently 48.8 thousand budget in capital. As you're aware, the capital policy changed in fiscal year 14, where the threshold for an item to be considered a capital item went from $1,000 to $5,000. So we have experienced less capital throughout the last few years. Capital items that are included in this proposed budget is a steam table for the Oasis Middle School cafeteria, as well as 2 servers for Krista McAuliffe Elementary. Those 2 IT servers are currently servicing Windows 2003. There's a drop-dead point that's coming up very soon that they will not support those servers any longer. Those 2 servers have a cost associated with them of, it is $10,800. I am actually proposing, instead of purchasing those servers currently, that we utilize that funding to do an IT assessment. As you know, we did just recently have an IT assessment done by the city, and the folks came in and they had some discussion with us. That assessment was a very high-level assessment. They just came in, they looked at a little bit of our equipment, they looked at the dates of our, our items, our equipment, and just kind of said, in order for us to proceed to the next step, we need to do another IT assessment, and that IT assessment could be between $10,000 and $15,000. So rather than purchase something today, not knowing what we need to do, 6 months from now, it would be my recommendation to not purchase those servers, but utilize that funding to go ahead and do that IT assessment to put us in a position where we know the direction that we need to go in from the IT infrastructure standpoint. In addition, the company that I did meet with, Extensys, they had advised that their IT assessment, if they were to do the assessment on our behalf, their IT assessment would give us basically an RFP. It would identify all of our access points, our cables in the walls, our equipment, servers, everything that we have from an infrastructure standpoint. and it would make a recommendation of what we would need to get where we need to go. We currently don't have the qualified IT staff. We have qualified IT staff, but not in the networking area that could put us in the direction we need to go in, so we have to rely on an outside source. But my recommendation would be take that money from the servers and have the IT assessment done. We are at a point where it's becoming a high risk, and we need to address our IT equipment quickly.
Okay, we have some discussion, Tammy?
Not so much updating everything, but basically to come in and look at what, that we have right now, the fiber coming in, but the fiber that comes in won't increase our speed, our Ethernet speed, because of our main core switches. Our main core switches are outdated. From the city IT inspection and the company that came in, those main core switches are at the end of their life. We could potentially lose, some or one or all of them. There's 4 of them. They have a value of approximately $200,000 associated with them. If they go down, it would be very difficult for us to recover quickly. There is no patch. There is no patch. It's something that we really do need to begin addressing. They'll look at the security, they'll make sure that, they look at the whole system, but what we need to tell them is what are where are we today, but where do we want to be? What are our requirements? Where are we going to grow? Where do we want to be in 5 years from now? And that's what we need to provide to them.
Okay, Daryl?
During our conversation, you said it was about $350,000 was recommended, with 20 of it going towards their evaluation.
That's correct.
Have we had a chance to look and see if there's any other companies out there that can do this? Because rather than spend $350,000, again, a piece of the equipment, would we not be better off during the summertime finding out, having it, try other companies to find out what they would charge, have them find the most reasonable bid, then doing this during the summer, and then we can meet during the August meeting to do the upgrade if needed, rather than just jump on the $350,000 or the $20,000.
Absolutely, and we also had a second company who's proposed a bid as well, and they're called CDW, and I've been in contact with the gentleman already. I'm just waiting to schedule a meeting with him because I don't want to move too quickly on this unless it's approved. Once I know that we're committed to the funding, I'll be sure to get the ball rolling and the correct people involved.
Did you have something to add, Steve?
Sorry, I might be the naysayer in this, but this whole recommendation on this infrastructure is important, as Marianne said, but it came with the city staff's blessing. I mean, they did a review with that also. So the truth of the matter is our infrastructure is not in good repair. And so it needs attention sooner probably rather than later.
Okay, Rob?
Should we, I just one quick thing. Should we proceed during this? I was still talking.
Daryl's finished his conversation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Should we proceed with trying to get this done, no matter how this goes, over the summer, so that by the August meeting at the latest, since that is before school begins, we can?
The reason that this is submitted in here now is because we know we need this assessment. It's like when you go to the store and you shop for something, we don't really know exactly all the things that we need. And so this will give us a breakdown that says, you need this, 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 this. What's nice about it is with this list, we are then able to go out and say, who can do this for the best price? So it's kind of an assessment to do that. Now, this is what I was talking about before in the strategic plan, was my goal, if we can get this done in the summer, is to come to you and say, okay, now we've had this assessment done. Here's package A, B, C. Here's the cost A if we do this, B if we do this, C if we do this. Some of these include external servers where there's literally like a person in a room that watches what happens and fixes things. There's other ones where you have our people can be trained and they get, we pay a portion of it. So there's a variety of techniques after. That's what the strategic session plan in my mind was for, if we can get this done so that we can say A, B, C. You all will help make that decision on where we need to proceed. But if we don't do this assessment now or don't do something along these lines, we're going to be just, funneling along and then trying to figure out where we are, because we don't have in-house capacity to say this is exactly what we need, and this is what this is for. And this is outside the city purview. This is our own people, or not our own people, but finding people that are willing and able to do this. So.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Rob?
Okay, I've got a couple of, points. Back to the city's involvement, I remember when we were expanding our wireless capacity and servers and all that sort of stuff at Kristen McAuliffe, the city was heavily involved in what we could and couldn't do on our side. So is that still the case?
This is exactly why, when we talked about having control over what we do, this is exactly why, even the thought, to be honest with you, about the accountant position, one of the things that I've been talking about is how can we rid ourselves of having to have these, because that's the reason right now is that we're connected so much is they say, well, you've got somebody working there and they have to have access, so you have to use our system, and then there we are. They've done a great job in supporting us all along, but it's a patched system. It's this piece that they've provided us is not met their requirements anymore, so they've been kind enough to supply it to us, and we've used it, but we've used it past its life efficiency, and now we have several different things. So the direct answer to you is this would be our own doing. This would be how we do it. We've had a couple of meetings with people that talk about even a different type of Wi-Fi system. So my guys is where we'd kind of be creating a blank template from which to work from.
Okay.
I had the same concerns when we were doing the Wi-Fi thing, but I was under the impression we didn't have an option, that we had to be tied to the city with our
I've
system.
met Fidel from the city, and quite frankly, he would probably be a little bit pleased. I don't want to put words in his mouth, he's not here, but that if we could start operating on our own, because it taxes his own resources. He has a million things also going on.
It was.
So I think they are fully supporting. Matter of fact, they've given us some folks that may be able to help us in this vein. So we've had many conversations. So we'd be supported from the city side.
Okay, and then I guess in relation to paying somebody $20,000 to tell us what they think we need, or some number, if we're having competing quotes from different companies, wouldn't that come as, I know if somebody's trying to sell you something, you gotta be careful what they recommend, but if we have somebody's trying to sell us something, we're gonna see where the inconsistencies are and what we really need without paying $20,000, is that fair to say?
I hate to say this, but I've done some research in it, and paying for these type of assessments is unfortunately in this area is rather traditional. I don't want to spend a penny. I'm with you.
It's traditional, okay, but we do have an IT department that should be able to see through.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. We have a really capable IT department. The problem is it's a big picture issue. It's the fiber that goes to Krista. Does the fiber go here? It's looking at our bandwidth. Does that connect with those kind of things? So it's a little bit, I don't want to say that we don't have people that are capable of all that, but it's a big picture network issue, and our folks are dedicated, and they do have their strengths, but I think this is a bigger. Now, is it anywhere close to 20 grand? We are going to bid down as the best that we can, and I think that's even a high assessment. So.
All right, then, Marion, you want to say something? All right, last part of that then, the sort of what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You think we need somebody to tell us what we need before we do the strategic plan, but if during the strategic plan we're talking about.
Well, some of this is not a choice though, because the reality is with the bandwidth, with the one-to-one that we're going to be facing here in 2010 or 2020, potentially where students are going to have access. This is we're to the point now where it's almost a non-negotiable, because we are going to need the bandwidth, we're going to need the network spacing. We've met a couple of different vendors ourselves, so we've vetted. I don't think that we can. I don't think the network part is something that we even have to plan as far as a strategic plan. We need it. I think that. We can provide the last report we got that just shows that it's needed.
You're talking about, okay, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the amount of money is what we would be talking about, and how you network, because a lot of the network stuff that they do now doesn't even have to be on site. And so there's ideas that you can get an A plan where they will do the remote fixing of everything, such that our IT people can focus on the things like making sure teachers have email and their curriculum works and their, the laptops working and things like that. Right now they're shuffling to get a server that's going to work for a while, and then maybe the other ones don't know. And then the other underlying issue that we've got, quite frankly, is we talked about succession planning with our administrators, and one of the issues that I feel like with our IT department is we've got people that have a lot of access and a lot of interest, and we do have good people, but if one of those people ever left, I don't know where we'd be left. So what I'm looking for is a way to have some control system-wide. Hopefully that.
The last part is it's stressing to hear that we might have to scrap some of the things we've done over the last years, especially since our PTOs work so hard to fund these things. I hope we can salvage, if we do have to replace anything, I hope we can salvage. I mean, those systems, we're talking about $30,000, in excess of $30,000 for some of those wireless systems. They're not junk. And that's what, I own a company, and I've got guys every day come in and tell me they've got something better, and what I'm using is garbage. Let's be careful on what we're hearing and what we're being told, because we've already invested a bunch of money. And just because it's not ideal in their world, because they don't sell you every piece, doesn't mean it can't work.
And just so you know, we did meet with the IT folks and provided one of the requests or quotes, if you will, the generic one, just to give them a sense of what's going on. And they've even admitted in conversation that, something along these lines is needed. Now, where and what will be seen. So, but that's the strategic plan. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Lenny?
I'm good.
Tammy?
What I'm hearing, it's more of an infrastructure more than the day-to-day operation of what the student computers and teacher computers.
Oh, absolutely. It's the systems or the servers that hold our data, and the systems that give us the speed when we do testing, such as testing. The speed that comes in, a lot of times we just don't have, and I don't know, because I'm not a technology person, but we don't have the most up-to-date, let's just say, speed.
Well, I saw 2003
and if there's too many
so.
people, if there's too many students testing, in a room, what happens is often, 5 of them get knocked out.
And it goes down.
And that's what we need to look at is why are they? Is it because is it because of the fiber? Is it because of the Ethernet, the speed coming in? And things like that, but more so our main equipment that was installed when the school was first built, and it's all pretty much right now located at Mr. Hook's school at OES, because that was the first building that was built.
Although I can agree with what Rob's saying with the $20,000 price tag. That might
Absolutely.
seem high, but I think at the end of the day, it could be money well spent.
Absolutely.
Because then you've got that protection that everything will work and function and it is compatible.
And what I found also is that there is room to negotiate.
Sure.
They've actually already, this one particular company, not saying that we're going with them, but the one particular company had actually came back, and they have offered that if we did it during one of their slow times where they didn't have a lot of work, that they could come down on the price. Another option would be is that if they provide the RFP, and if it was something that we selected them to do the particular work, they would take that cost of that assessment and apply it to the ultimate cost that they proposed. So there are options out there.
Sure, and through your own admission, you're not that subject matter expert in that technology, that part of it. I would imagine through something like this, then they agree to take on the responsibility and accountability that system will work and function as it should.
And this particular company had actually done some work for Pinellas County schools as well, and they had offered for us to take a tour there to see what they've done and how things are operating, in Pinellas County. So that's just an option out there, but until we know what direction we want to go in, we have not made a determination as to who or what we'll do.
And if I could just chime in one last time, I got a text already from one of our IT guys. So he has a company that's going to be coming in to try to start a free assessment to see where we are. So we are certainly going to do everything we can. I think my recommendation is that we budget the money there, and then we will determine, and you just have to trust that we'll determine the best case of action, and we're certainly going to be very stringent with the monies and not just open the checkbook, but getting that text does assure me that they are as well doing the same thing we are doing, so he just wanted to remind me. So
you're being proactive. We don't want to run into the AC
Certainly.
or the buses or something like that.
That's exactly where we're at. I think the recommendation of budgeting the money, should we need, will help us through the summer if we find that we need to. If we can get a free assessment, we'll take a free assessment, we'll do whatever we need to do. But if we don't have that money and without having a meeting, we're delaying, and then I don't want to end up
There's a great
coming
risk.
to you saying sorry, that we didn't have that.
Okay, I see a lot of lights on Odette.
Mary Ann, what do you need from us at this point? Do we need to amend this current budget, or you're saying
No,
that the money?
what I was going to do was, rather than us have to go out and purchase those 2 servers,
Right.
Hold off on those until we know what direction we really need to go in. Why replace those two servers now, when they might not be any good 6 months from now, or we don't need them 6 months from
So
now?
if we approve the budget that we
Will-
have
it will
before
be
us today,
included.
that would allow you to
do the
go ahead
assessment.
and do
Mhm.
what you need to do?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead with the assessment. Rob, is there,
I think I must have talked too much. My mic
okay,
will go off.
very good. Is there anybody else